Welcome back to The Evil Within. We're going to start a new game plus after completing our Akumu run, but I want you to notice that what we're going to do is we're going to start with a base run. When you pick new game plus, you get to pick a base run, and then you get to pick the chapter you want to start. We're going to start with a base run that was not completed under Akumu. It was completed under survival first, and then one run of casual. That was where we got the Quick and the Dead achievement.
Seems someone wants me.
But notice that we could start this game on Akumu. You can go back to a previously saved, completed game and start as your new game plus base, and you can still go all the way to Akumu on its difficulty. But notice what you lose. You lose the brass knuckles. We don't get the brass knuckles if we do it this way. But we already have all of the other bonuses that came with the other completed games. We have the rocket launcher. We have the machine gun. In this instance, we've already completed the map, so we have the burst handgun and the better sniper rifle. I'm going to take you into the sanctuary and show you that we are fully upgraded.
For me, my ass.
That the lockers look the way they were. Well, you won't. I mean, you can't. I can't. Maybe if you remember at the end of
since your last visit,
the Quick and the Dead, but we didn't look at the lockers in the Quick and the Dead. But you have no way of knowing what the lockers should look like, but they don't look like they did at the end of Akumu. They look like they did at the last time we saved in this set of runs. The map is already done. The lockers are all open, of course. You can see that the different ones have different things still left in them. We have some bolts left around that we haven't used. We'll go in and check the upgrade table. Show you that Sebastian is fully upgraded. All of his weapons are fully upgraded. The point I'm trying to make here is that the wording of the way New Game Plus is often on the web and is also in the manuals and things like that. It feels like you can only start the game at the highest level you've completed, which is true, but that sort of implied to me that you would only be able to start, you wouldn't be able to go back to a previously saved spot and then run it at the new higher level, which is what we're doing here. So you can see we just finished Akumu, but I can go in here and I can now play Akumu at any chapter. I can play Akumu with a fully upgraded Sebastian. I don't have to wait. I don't have to re-upgrade him all the way. So if you've completed all the other achievements and you complete Akumu, then you can start a new game plus and go straight to the upper limits. Okay, that was the goal of showing you that, because that's a little counterintuitive to the way it's worded usually. Now, this is what would normally happen. You would finish Akumu, you would load the Akumu save that you just created, just as you finished the game. And here you can, of course, pick any different difficulty you want as well. So we're going to pick it on survival. We're just picking kind of standard. We'll look at the weapons. The weapons will show you that we do not have the added sniper rifle nor the added handgun, but we do have the brass knuckles. We have the rocket launcher, and this time we have 20 in stock instead of, if you were paying attention in the last one, it had that load had 7 rockets left. What's important about the rockets is it says we have 1 loaded, we have 20 in stock of a maximum of 30. You will never get to 30. It's impossible. There are not 30. You will only ever have 20. And those 20 only last until you use them up in your save game progress.
Necessary for
let's shift over to some lore for a moment. I want to take a few minutes to close up the loop on the philosophy that we've been building over the entire series.
since your last visit.
The thing is, life is 10% what happens to you, but 90% how you react to it. You don't take ownership of your 90%. That 90% of your life that you control, if you look for someone external to yourself or something external to yourself to save you from the 10%, then you will wind up handing over the only thing in your life you control, the 90%, your response, your control. Your entire life, you will hand it over to the person or the thing that you believe will make you safe. The key to breaking a human psyche, then, is to control that 10%. The easiest way is to control the fear. By generating more fear, you gain more control. Once they're afraid, you then offer them hope that you and you alone can end the fear. You gain control over the life of that person. The only thing in their lives that they have control over, they will gladly hand over their 90% to you and consent to you being in control in order to stop the fear. That is this game. That is STEM. That is Mobius, and that is Ruvik. In STEM, the fear is very real, very visceral, undeniable, and in your face. That is the 10%. It's what happens to you. Hope is your response, your 90%. What you control is the 90% of where you place your hope. Consent is what happens when the hope looks outward instead of inward. The game has 3 main characters, Ruvik, Sebastian, and Leslie. They each have experienced the trauma of losing loved ones in tragic and violent ways. The trauma has brought a type of synchronicity to their brainwave patterns. But the trauma that scarred each of them deeply is only the 10% of life that has happened to them. The other 90%, their reaction to that trauma, is what truly defines who they are. Just remember these 3 characters. There are 3 characters, 3 traumas, 3 responses, and the story is about who walks out free. All right, so you see what we did? We used the large amount of green gel that we had, which clearly shows that we didn't have.
It looks like the door's locked from the other side.
We weren't fully upgraded,
Sebastian,
right?
Maybe
Okay.
we can lift this enough for
And
Kidman to go under.
We're
and
gonna
open it
kind
from
of
the other
skip
side.
through
We're
most of
counting on
chapter
you.
5 here.
All right.
Don't worry, we'll cover it. I promised people, a victory lap. We're gonna use the brass knuckles and we're gonna destroy chapter 5 with it. But right now we're gonna skip through it and just get to the point where we're gonna pick up the map fragment that we missed in the Akumu run. It's after the water tank battle, so we've skipped to this point. If you remember this,
Let's
this
get
in
going.
the episodes. This is where Sebastian first decides that maybe Kidman isn't who she says she is because she uses the word he, and that he catches onto that, and then immediately Ruvik separates the two of them because, as we've talked many
glad you're
times,
both
Ruvik
alright.
can't allow
What's
the
up?
wisdom and the
Why would they catch you instead of just
wisdom and the force to be
Maybe he didn't
combined.
see me as a
So
threat.
He.
we're gonna find that map piece. We're gonna go back to the sanctuary. We're gonna save, and then we're gonna use that new saved game as a base to start to go get the other piece that we're missing, which is the only piece that you cannot get in a regular game. It has to be New Game Plus to get the missing persons number
Another one
15
of those
poster.
doors.
And so we're gonna pick up the map piece, go back to the sanctuary. I think we wind up using some more gel because in getting here we built up some gel. Here's your map piece. It's the last one. If you were counting, it would be number 28 for you to pick up, but it's actually the 10th map piece. Okay, so some of you picked up in the
Sebastian,
earlier
forgotten
episodes that the
something?
map piece numbers were not matching the numbers that I was putting in the HUD, and that's because we missed that one. So from this point on, from when we said number 10, it was actually 11, and it just stayed that way until we got to the end. But you can see now that we have it, we're still missing the missing persons report, number 15, because it's not available until it's only available at a one specific time in chapter 2, right at the very beginning of chapter 2. So we're going to go in here, show you the map is complete, pick up the weapons that you get for that, the burst handgun and the additional sniper rifle, the improved sniper rifle. We'll look at them a little bit, but we'll look at them closer later on. The important thing is here we're gonna save using these settings, and then we're going to use that as the next base for our next run. But while you look at this, here's a little bit more tip about where we're going with the lore. First, let's talk about Ruben's story. Ruben Victoriano was a young sociopath tethered to the world by his older sister Laura. He was experimenting on the brains of farm animals at a young age in a crude attempt to understand emotions and social constructs that he had no capacity for. This early work, believe it or not, was actually encouraged by Dr. Jimenez. The Elk River villagers, upset with Ruben's father, burned the Victoriano barn. But Ruben and Laura are inside. Ruben was left horribly disfigured, and Laura was left comatose. The overwhelming fear that Rubin experienced in that fire turned to anger as he realized that the fire was not an accident. Their father then locked Rubin into the basement of their mansion, away from even his mother. His research shifted at that time to trying to reconnect to the unconscious sister, Laura. All he wanted to do was to find her subconscious mind and bring her back out of her coma so that she could be the woman that he remembered. But all he found at the bottom of that burnt shell was a screaming, multi-armed abomination forever burning. In the basement, his anger turned to hate and patricide. Killing both of his parents freed him from the basement, but didn't sate his vengeance. He then turned his vengeance towards the villagers of Elk River, dissecting and torturing them in the same way that he had tortured the farm animals earlier. At that time, his research turned towards fully experiencing, to live their trauma with them, to watch them suffer by connecting to their subconscious minds while he tortured them. This is when he uncovered the three-part key to the human psyche, stimulating three specific parts of the brain: fear, hope, and consent. The solution to those brain puzzles that were so puzzling in Chapter 9. Rubin's 90% response to the 10% trauma of the barn fire and being locked away in the basement was anger and hate, which led him on a path of vengeance against the entire world. Okay, so now as we show up, we're going to start Chapter 2, like I said, to get the missing person report. It's probably not going to be a surprise to you who it is, but I'll wait until it shows. So if it is a surprise, you get to feel the surprise. If we had played through Akumu and not missed that map, this would be the only piece that we would be missing for the achievement. And so you could just start Chapter 2.
Hello?
Pick it up.
Anybody there?
There was a cutscene that we skipped. We're not gonna play the cutscenes during this video. This video is focusing on mostly the mechanics of how the New Game Plus works.
Are we awake?
And then we're going to kind of do a fun show of
Whatever are you talking
what the brass knuckles are worth
about?
to
You are
you.
the only soul here right now.
And of course, we're going to summarize our lore that we built through the whole game process.
Hospital.
This place is necessary for you. You're always welcome here.
I've been hospitalized.
I'm afraid I cannot answer that.
Maybe hard to remember all the way back, but this is right after they went over a ledge with the ambulance, and so he's limping and he's hurt and he's very confused. But now you see what happened. Even though we saved that game in Chapter 5, we saved it after we had the map piece, after we'd already picked up the guns for the map piece. That map piece isn't here.
Fine in here.
It didn't follow with us, even though we used it as the base. And the burst handgun and the better sniper rifle, those didn't come with us either. It says it pretty clearly when you're loading the new game that you must save at the end of a chapter. Things do not carry with you to the end of a chapter.
Missing Sebastian Castellanos. Crimson City police detective disappeared while investigating missing person.
They only carry through to the new saved game or the new game plus if you make it to the end of the chapter. So by leaving in the middle of Chapter 5, we lost the progress there. We lost the map piece, we lost the guns, we lost all of our upgrades. We regained what was in the lockers. The lockers have been replaced with that. So now I'm saving there, and you're saying, well, you're saving in the middle of a thing. And well, you actually have to save there, or she won't open this door. And the only way to complete Chapter 2 is to go through that door, sit in this chair, take your first injection of green gel. You can see that we have all that gel back. We have the 77950. We have it all back.
Relax.
So
Please.
So all those upgrades were lost. The handgun, the sniper rifle, those were lost. The map piece, we don't have the map piece anymore, so we'll have to go back through Chapter 5. That's why I was saying, don't worry about us skipping a lot of Chapter 5. We will deliver Chapter 5 with brass knuckles. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into chapter 2, run all the way through chapter 2 so that our missing persons poster follows with us. Then we will use that saved base that comes from the end of chapter 2. We'll use that as the base to start another New Game Plus, go back to chapter 5 and run chapter 5 all the way through. So, we have a lot of time to talk about lore as we burst heads with the brass knuckles. Now let's talk about Leslie's story. Leslie, like Reuben, suffered a horrific trauma. He watched his entire family be murdered right in front of him. We aren't given a whole lot of details about the murder. We don't know who did it, why they did it, where they did it, or when they did it. We don't know how old Leslie was when it happened.
What the hell is
But we
going
do know
on?
how Leslie responded to it.
Where am I?
He was being treated in a hospice in Elk River for catatonia, a neuropsychiatric syndrome characterized by a marked lack of movement, communication, and responsiveness to the environment, despite the person being fully conscious and awake. It's as if they withdraw into their own mind and wall themselves off from the world. We don't know why it happened, but we do know how Leslie controlled the response. He controlled it by walling himself off in his own mind. His 90% response to the 10% of trauma was utter fear and isolation. You'll see that chapter 2, since we've lost the upgrades, we do not have the upgraded melee attacks. So this is just raw brass knuckles with no upgrades to your melee skills, and no added damage there. We're gonna watch the kind of famous cutscene. I think you could have skipped part of it, but you know it's such a great. Obviously, I cut that cutscene there, but the cutscene where we actually see Connolly has changed. It's just so iconic. I'll never cut that out of any of these videos.
Connolly? My God, Connolly.
Our third character of the story is Sebastian. Sebastian was a rising star in Crimson City Police Department, where he was the youngest officer ever promoted to be a detective in the KCPD. He fell in love with his first partner, Myra, roughly 9 years before the game starts. A year after they got married, they had a little girl named Lily. Lily was 5 years old when the trauma struck Sebastian. She was 5 years old when their home burned down and bodies of a young girl and the nanny were found in the ashes.
Were you warning me about this?
Sebastian's response to this?
You were Leslie, right?
How did he control his 90%?
I'm a police officer.
He falls into a deep
Maybe I
depression,
should help you. Should help you.
internalizing the loss of Lily as
How am I gonna
a normal
get you to a
father would,
hospital?
as the personal failing of a father that didn't keep his child safe. The trauma causes deep-seated feeling of guilt
What
and
the
depression,
fuck?
and he turns to alcohol to lessen the pain. Unlike Sebastian, Myra, his wife, looks for a reason for the fire and starts an investigation to figure out whether or not it's arson. When Myra goes missing, he receives a letter from her saying that he needs to finish her investigation and to get justice, all for justice, for her and Lily. She signs that letter with, "I love you with all my heart." So even though he turned to depression and alcohol, you see that he didn't lose his facilities. He was still a sergeant in the police department. He was still a loved husband and devoted husband and father. That his wife asked him for justice. While the world initially thinks that Myra left him because of his drinking, he knows that that's not true, and he starts his own investigation, which puts him at odds with his own police department, who's directing him to leave it alone. Sebastian's 90% response to the 10% of trauma in his life was in the way guilt and depression, but it came from a strong sense of personal responsibility, taking ownership of his part of life. Gotta love being covered in goo all the time. To understand our story, and how these three characters' lives were crashing together, you have to understand what STEM is. When Ruben unlocked the key to the human psyche while torturing the Elk River villagers, he conceptualized STEM for the first time, a device which could connect the subconscious minds of the people connected to it. But to build it, he needed more bodies. He needed more physical brains and more minds that he could continue to experiment on. He turned to Jimenez to provide this, and that's how people started going missing in Crimson City, specifically the missing mental patients from Beacon Hospital. Eventually, a crude but functional system was built, and the patients Jimenez provided were no longer being directly dissected, but were rather just connected to the stem. I say just connected. Having a large needle stuck into the back of their head, connected to stem, where the neural connections could be calibrated and stem could be refined. One of those patients was Leslie, who had improved enough from his stay at the hospice center in Elk River to be moved to Beacon Mental Hospital in Crimson City. Dr. Jimenez gave him to Ruben for experimentation. Ruben found that Leslie shared a similar brainwave patterns because of the shared types of trauma that they had experienced. With the prototype more or less working, Jimenez brought the concept to Mobius, who's the owner of Beacon Hospital, and also this large conglomerate that wants technology that would help them control the world. With Mobius behind the research, it takes on an entirely new scope. It's much larger, it's much more powerful, and Jimenez takes most of the credit for that invention. Ruben and Mobius do not agree on how the system will be used. Ruben locks the system to his brainwave patterns, thinking that will give him the ultimate control over the project. But Mobius takes that lock literally and dissects him in the same way that he had been dissecting the Elk River villagers, taking Ruben's brain as the key to unlock STEM. They expected to only get the hardware, the brain, and to use that to unlock the lock that Ruben had placed on STEM. But with the brain came Ruben's soul, his conscious mind, and the STEM became the hardware of Ruben's soul. After Ruben is made into Ruvik, every person that's connected to STEM dies of heart attacks or strokes, except Leslie. Mobius is greatly displeased and lays most of the blame on Dr. Jimenez.
Better get out of here.
Alright, so we made it through Chapter 2. By hitting the end of the cutscene here, we get a chance to save, having completed a chapter. And you'll see that when we then use the save game that we create now, when we use that as the base for going back to Chapter 5 to re-get our map piece, that the missing persons poster that we picked up at the beginning of Chapter 2 will come with us. That's just how the save games work in New Game Plus. You have to get all the way to the end of the chapter, or the stuff that you do doesn't really complete the chapter with you. You can't take that to another chapter with you unless you complete the entire chapter. So in some ways, it's fortunate that we left the map piece that we left behind in the Akumu run was in Chapter 5, because as much as running Chapter 2 was fun with the brass knuckles, we get to do the water tank, the very first rage quit point, where it's usually ranked about second or third on the rage quit list.
Seems someone
We get to run that with the brass knuckles. Changes everything. Taking most of the blame for the current failed system of STEM, Jimenez took it upon himself to try to fix it, to try to find a way to improve his standing in Mobius's eyes. He found in the rubble of Victoriano Mansion. When Mobius took Ruben, they burned Victoriano Mansion down to the ground and took all the notes. But there were a few scraps here and there that were left behind, and Dr. Jimenez found in those notes two crucial things. One, that Ruben had already figured out that Leslie had very similar brainwave patterns to Ruben himself. He also found early schematics for a wireless version of STEM. Jimenez kept both of these secrets to himself, at least for a time being. But he did eventually start talking to Mobius about his feeling that the problem was not a biomechanical glitch in the system, it was a ghost in the system. the ghost of Reuben, that Reuben's soul went with his brain into the system. He had no specific way of proving this. Mobius was skeptical. They thought they had just grabbed the hardware from Reuben and unlocked a lock. So they felt it was probably a system failure of some sort. Jimenez, the only way Jimenez had of proving his theory that it was the ghost in the machine that was causing the deaths of everybody that was connected to STEM was to go into STEM himself. But if it's a system failure, how's he going to get back out? And even if it's a ghost in the machine, how's he going to get back out? Well, they had found that every time they connected Leslie, Leslie would get back out and he would be fine. So he theorized that he could go into STEM with Leslie and that Leslie would get him back out. Now this puts him in direct odds with Mobius. Mobius does not want him going in there, and they're worried about Leslie being subjected to it as well, because Jimenez has already told them that Leslie and Ruvik have similar brainwave patterns. What they're hearing is they're hearing Leslie's a replacement for Reuben. Reuben broke the system, Leslie will fix the system. Leslie's not in a good position here. He's about to be dissected and turned into STEM. But Jimenez needs to find out whether it's a system problem or a ghost in the machine. So he finishes building the wireless system. He connects himself and Leslie to the system and then turns the wireless system on. And that's how we're all here. That's how we all got into STEM at the same time at the very beginning of the game. Now you notice without the physical melee attack upgrades that the invisible foes were taking 2 punches. If you had all the upgrades there, they were 1 punch. If you have all the upgrades, almost everything's a 1 punch. Of course, there are things like bosses that are not. Laura, don't try to use the brass knuckles against Laura. Don't try that. So then the question remains, how does Leslie experience STEM? What is it that's special about Leslie that makes him able to survive STEM? And what is it like when he's connected to STEM? Leslie has been connected multiple times, before and after the hardware change from the biomechanical system that it was to Reuben's soul and becoming Ruvik. He knows how to survive. He uses the same internal mechanisms that caused his catatonia after the trauma of losing his family.
Let's get out of here fast.
That same trauma response mechanism that he developed in the real world is what he uses inside of STEM. He goes and creates a safe place in his own mind. He goes there, sets a warden at the door, and hides until the experience is over. That's how he's been surviving. The place that he creates looks an awful lot like a mental hospital. Probably the safest place that he's been since the trauma. And the watchdog that he sets at the front door is Tatiana, Nurse Tatiana, the only person in life that gave him any sense of real compassion or caring, rather than just kind of the clinicalness of doctors. And if you can believe one of his doctors was Dr. Jimenez, you can understand what kind of treatment he's probably been receiving. He feels Ruvik constantly beating on that door. Well, not the door, but the walls. Just constantly beating on the walls that there are no doors. So the walls that he has constructed in his own brain, in his own safe place that walls himself in, that walls him away from the rest of humanity, is what's saving him inside of STEM. He can feel Ruvik beating on the door, beating on the walls, trying to get in. But he's hidden the door. He's symbolically chosen a mirror as the only entrance to his safe place. And he doesn't tell anybody about it. He survives by waiting for someone to make the fear and pain go away. Dr. Jimenez is the one that has constantly pulled him back out of STEM in the past. However, he also understands that kind of a fundamental level that Dr. Jimenez is also the one person that's been putting him into STEM, and therefore he needs a savior. He needs someone other than Dr. Jimenez, but somebody who could actually save him from the whole mess. Not just put him in and take him out, put him in and take him out, but actually make it all stop, make the fear and the pain go
Why would
away.
they put a bomb like this?
When the wireless
Do
stem
you
is
think we
turned
can get
on
past
for the
it?
first time,
Stand back.
he sees a possible real
see if I
savior,
can disarm it.
Sebastian. There in the ambulance at the end of chapter 1, he sees someone who doesn't appear to be overwhelmed at all by what's happening. Leslie pulls Sebastian directly into his own walled sanctuary and introduces him to Tatiana.
What is it?
You see that right at the beginning of
Let's
chapter
just
2.
get out of here.
And
There's
even
something
has
wrong with
Tatiana
this
later
place.
in chapter 2 show him the secret way in, show him the secret of the mirrors. She goes outside the sanctuary into the STEM world and draws Sebastian's attention and shows him how to get into the sanctuary through the mirror. All right, so you can tell we're coming up on the water tank. We're going to go back into the sanctuary for just a bit and make sure. To do the water tank battle, I wanted to have the upgrades. I wanted to show you what fighting without the upgrades looked like, but for the battle itself, I wanted to have the full upgrades so you get the full effect. Get to watch the heads pop. It'll be fun. Now to Sebastian, he has no clear explanation for what's going on, what's happening.
I knew it.
He has no prior knowledge of STEM, Mobius, Beacon Hospital.
better now?
He knows nothing other than there have been people that have gone missing and something is happening at Beacon Hospital. There's a bunch of dead people. He has no clue what's going on. To him, the world is just falling into some sort of apocalyptic nightmare where normal people are turning into haunted zombies and the very earth is rending itself asunder. His response is to try to bring his team back together, to locate Joseph and Kidman and regroup, decide on a course of action, find out what is responsible for what's happening, and then go stop that. He is actively trying to take charge of the situation, even in this nightmare. This is the strength that Leslie sees at the very beginning of the game. That's the strength that Leslie invites into his shelter, into his sanctuary, and shows him through Tatiana how to get there on his own into the sanctuary. But what Sebastian doesn't understand is that that's a gift from Leslie. That probably saved his life as they were careening into nothingness from the ambulance at the end of chapter 1. He just wakes up in the hospital in chapter 2, and he doesn't know that Leslie has made this place or that Leslie has invited him. But his subconscious mind is beginning to understand. When Tatiana shows him behind the counter, allows him behind the counter, opens the counter door and says, "You'll find this useful," and opens the door, his subconscious creates his own safe place behind those closed doors. A part of the sanctuary that Leslie has created that Leslie would have no reference for. So it's a blank slate for Sebastian to create his own sanctuary in. It's eternally linked to Leslie, but you can see that it's Sebastian's. It's got police evidence lockers. It's got a war room with a map on the wall and files strewn all about the table. There's computers. It's clearly not a Leslie construct. It's a Sebastian construct. Tatiana also shows him how to use the medical equipment. The one piece that's out there in the common area, that medical chair, that's where Sebastian brings this strange green gel that he keeps running into, and he makes himself stronger with it. He uses it to full advantage throughout the whole game, collecting every bit of that substance he can find and using it to make himself more powerful. And one thing about running New Game Plus is that green gel is twice as plentiful. Everywhere you would find 1,000, you now find 2,000. Everywhere you would find 300, you now find 600. So it's just a really great thing for New Game Plus. It's a way of shortening how long it takes you to get all of your upgrades. I thought that was good of the developers to link that in that way. But here we are at the big battle. You can watch on the screen, but I'll probably talk through most of it
Joseph,
with some
are you
lore.
all right?
There's not a whole lot of strategy to talk through,
Think you'd better get
just
down here.
punch. He throws haymakers, he pops heads. It's a lot of fun.
Shit! Let's hurry it up.
Don't even have to pick up the axes. 2, 3 at one time.
How many of
That's
these
nice.
things are there?
Do have to be careful of dynamite though. You're going to see that in a few minutes. You notice that since we knew we were going to go melee, we also upgraded our health and the amount of health that we get from healing items. So we're a tank at this point. All right. So enjoy the show. We're going to talk a little more lore now.
Watch out! They've got dynamite!
Rubin, of course, wasn't brought into STEM with the wireless beacon being turned on. He was already there. He's already at the center of it. He's the key in the lock that Mobius used to turn STEM back on after Rubin had locked it. Rubin felt every cut of the dissection that turned him into Ruvik. He recognized exactly what was being done to him. He had already done it to countless villagers himself. He knew exactly what was being done, but he felt every cut, every pull of the skin, every tug on every neuron.
Cover. They're shooting.
What he didn't expect was that his consciousness, his own mind, would survive that brutality. To him, he woke in his own home, the Victoriano mansion. But this time, he wasn't just locked in the basement, he's locked in
Watch
that
out.
jar.
They've got dynamite.
All he wants to do is escape, to get back to the real world where he can extract his revenge, his vengeance upon Mobius, the people that did this to him. He needs 3 things to do that. He needs a door, a way out. He needs a vessel, someone to carry his consciousness back into the real world, and a knife, something strong enough to cut his final tether to stem and break the hardware of Ruben's soul. He had one tool at his disposal, the key.
More of them on the move.
He is the key to the unlocked stem. He also knows the key that he discovered in those early days of torturing Elk River villagers. He knows that fear, hope, and consent are the key to breaking the human psyche. As Ruvik, he had complete control over the 10%. He's at the center of the system. He can create all the fear he needs. I mean, it's clear, right? I mean, there's no question. This is a horror game. There aren't teddy bears. There are zombies. There are things that will eat you and crush you and grind you into pulp. Anyone connected to STEM is subjugated to the 10% that he's going to inflict upon them. He will use that 10% to look for the responses that he needs from the people that get connected. Now, most of the poor souls that will get connected to STEM, especially those that get connected completely unknowingly, I mean, they're just, doing yard work, doing household chores. The wireless beacon turns on and the world is now this. And that would be shocking to almost anyone, right? Well, most of them are completely overwhelmed by the fear. They have no idea what's going on. They don't understand what's happening in any way. And they see no escape. They see their neighbors turning into zombies. They themselves start to turn into zombies. Their response to that fear is a complete and utter lack of hope. When your response is nothing, when your response to your 10% is absolutely nothing, you generate no hope external, no hope internal, no hope whatsoever. You become a haunted zombie. You're immediately at the hapless will of Ruvik. Ruvik just harvests your bioenergy and goes on. He needs that bioenergy that you're providing him to try to beat down the walls that Leslie puts up.
Where do these cables go?
He recognizes that Leslie is a person with similar brainwave patterns. He's a mental patient that he thought he could easily overpower and possess. In other words, an easy vessel to get. He thought that was the easiest of the keys to get. He was surprised to find out that Leslie's internal walls, honed through years in the real world of developing a way to wall off the entire world, were strong enough to keep Ruvik at bay as well. It was impossible for him to overcome. So he just kept draining bioenergy from more and more haunted zombies were created. Every time somebody new was connected to STEM, he drains them. His hope is that one day he will be able to overcome Leslie's walls. He knew that if he could generate enough fear and break those walls down, that Leslie would then consent to Ruvik's control simply to make the fear end, to make the pain go away.
Look at the control panel.
But when the
It's got
wireless
same
system,
kind of dials, right?
when the wireless stem is turned on for the first time,
Set the upper dial to
he now realizes he may have all 3 keys. He has the door, the wireless beacon, Leslie's in there, and there's a knife.
Hang on, I'm coming.
So we're getting close to where that map piece is.
Where'd they go?
We got to go through one small battle here in this room, and then we'll be back at that gate that you saw us time warp to the last time. So we're getting close. Ruvik, of course, immediately noticed that Sebastian was not like the others. Sebastian did not become a haunted zombie the minute the beacon's light crossed his path, but nor did he cower in fear the way Leslie did and hide himself behind walls.
Kidman, you there?
His response, Sebastian's response to fear, was different. Instead of cowering or giving up, Sebastian stood strong, confident in his own ability to, maybe he doesn't believe he can overcome, but he knows he can at least face whatever it is that's causing the apocalypse. He'll meet it head on. Ruvik saw Sebastian growing stronger, harvesting the same bioenergy that Ruvik himself was using to grow stronger. The green gel, the same bioelectrical energy that he had been harvesting from the haunted zombies in order to overcome Leslie's walls. That's the same green gel that Sebastian is using somewhere, somehow, to become stronger. Ruvik doesn't know. We know that he's using it inside that chair inside the sanctuary. Ruvik doesn't know how he's doing it. He just knows that he is doing it. He certainly recognizes that that's a threat. That's a threat to his sovereignty over STEM. Here was a man who would not consent, would never relinquish his 90%. He took individual responsibility for his actions and his responses. A man like that inside of STEM is definitely a threat to Ruvik.
It looks like the door's locked from the
Sebastian
other
was
side.
overcoming every threat, every
We can
obstacle that
lift this
Ruvik
enough for
could
Kidman
place
to
in
go
front of
under
him.
and open it from the
But a
other
man
side.
like that
We're counting
also
on you.
presented an
All right.
opportunity. The threat to Ruvik would only become real if Sebastian gained enough knowledge to prevent Ruvik's escape. All Ruvik wants is out so that he can go and exact his revenge on Mobius. Ruvik needs to keep him away from the sources of information that might lead him to actually stopping that. He needs to keep him away from Dr. Jimenez and Kidman. As long as he was left in the dark, Ruvik would be free to hone, sharpen, and guide Sebastian's responses, not through fear,
We should go.
but by presenting him with exactly what Sebastian needs: a mystery to be solved, a criminal to catch, and an evil to overcome. Every time Sebastian
you're
gets
both
close to
alright.
getting the crucial piece of a puzzle that he needs to really solve the riddle of what's happening,
Maybe he didn't see me as a
Ruvik
threat.
immediately interrupts.
He.
Regardless of whether it's a conversation with Dr. Jimenez, a conversation with Kidman, anybody that can provide him the information that he needs to really become a problem for Ruvik, Ruvik immediately intervenes and separates them. He separates the source of the information from the will of force that is Sebastian. At the end of chapter 8, Ruvik
Another
catches
one of those
Sebastian
doors.
and Jimenez having a discussion he can't let go on. That discussion is going to lead to where Sebastian would know what Ruvik was trying to do, what he was trying to accomplish. He interrupts that conversation with sending this huge amalgam, this monstrous creation of massive amounts of bioelectrical energy was used to construct this horrific beast. The beast is so stunning and so startling that even Sebastian, who is kind of facing everything head on, turns and runs, flees in panic. That fleeing in panic, that kind of jump scare that caught Sebastian off guard,
Have you
because
forgotten
Sebastian's
something?
mind was focused on what Jimenez was about to say. He was about to get the information he wanted, and all of a sudden there's this beast. And that jump scare got Sebastian to run. That moment of weakness, that moment of failure on Sebastian's part, he runs directly to the only place his subconscious knows. The only place inside STEM that his subconscious has felt safe has been the sanctuary. His subconscious runs directly back there. Ruvik walks down the footpath right behind him and now has breached Leslie's sanctum. He didn't break the walls down. He didn't circle the walls. The siege is over. He's in the door. And you saw him do it right there, just as we were talking about it. He interrupted the conversation between Kidman and Sebastian. That was the first hint that Sebastian had that there might be something behind what's going on. A he, and Kidman slipped and said he didn't think I was a threat, and Sebastian immediately picked up on it, and Ruvik immediately said, "No, we can't talk about that." Right, now let's look at these weapons that they gave us. They gave us a burst handgun. It shoots 3 bullets instead of 1, and they gave us a upgraded sniper rifle. You saw the stats there. We've run through the stats a couple of times now, at least on the screen. But I wanted to show you kind of the animations, the reloading of the handgun. It looks much, it's a much more modern gun than the other gun. There isn't a whole lot of difference in the animations for the rifle, but the look is much slicker, much nicer. It's more powerful. It has piercing. That moment at the end of chapter 8, where Sebastian runs back to the sanctuary and leads Ruvik straight in the door, straight into, now there's a footpath between the Victoriano mansion and Leslie's shelter, his sanctuary. The moment that happened at the end of chapter 8, the entire game changes. Ruvik now has, number 1, he has his door. He has his way out. All he has to do is get to beacon. His vessel's defenses are down, completely shattered, not by force, but by guile. Led directly into the sanctuary. From Leslie's perspective, he's put his hope in Sebastian. Sebastian was to be his savior. He had his watchdog, Tatiana, show him how to get into the sanctuary, how to use the green gel, how to make his own sanctuary inside of that. All of this has been betrayed. Sebastian has led Ruvik straight into his sanctuary, the only place that Leslie could have gone to weather the storm. He can no longer go there. He's been banished from his own sanctuary. Leslie then turned to Dr. Jimenez. The immediate response is, okay, that guy has gotten me out before. Maybe he can get me out again. I can't hide. I need to go out now. So he goes and finds Dr. Jimenez. And you see it immediately. I mean, even in chapter 9, you see Leslie and Jimenez together, right? By the end of chapter 10, Leslie and Jimenez are at a terminal, an actual STEM terminal. And Dr. Jimenez is matching the brainwaves, and they're about to get out. And here comes the amalgam again, right? Just as Sebastian shows up, starts to hear the conversation, starts to see that they're about to get out, sees the world changing to something sane, odd but sane around him. That's when Ruvik interrupts. That's when Jimenez, too late, realizes what Ruvik wants. That the ghost in the machine, he already knew the ghost in the machine is real. They've already encountered each other, so he knows the ghost in the machine is real. It's not a system failure, it's a ghost in the machine. But he didn't realize until that point that Ruvik didn't want them dead. He wanted to get out. He wants the same thing that they all want. Ruvik kills Jimenez with the amalgam. There again, Leslie's placed his hope first in Sebastian, then in Jimenez, and both of them have failed him. Now he turns to Kidman, the one other person that seems to be completely coherent inside of STEM. He goes to her, and you see this in the later chapters of her DLCs, that she is with him. She's saving him from Ruvik. Ruvik's trying to capture him out in the real world, and Kidman's constantly thwarting that. And Leslie turns to her and says, "Will you protect me?" And she says to Leslie, "That's my job. Of course I will protect you." And Leslie is happy, and he walks a few steps away, and Kidman pulls a gun to the back of his head. There can't be a more direct betrayal than that. So here Leslie has put his hope. Sebastian, Jimenez, Kidman, each one has failed him. He has no recourse now. He could only turn to Ruvik. Ruvik is the only one that can stop the pain, stop the fear, and give him back his own sanctuary. Ruvik now has 2 of the 3 things he needs to get out. He has the door, the beacon terminal, and the vessel, Leslie. Leslie is already in the mode, already ready to consent, already ready to turn his 90% over to Ruvik. Now he needs a knife. Sebastian is the knife. Ruvik has played his hands exceptionally well. Sebastian is focused entirely on beating Ruvik. He led him down the path to say, "I'm the problem. I'm the one that's going to kill you. I'm the one that's causing the problem. Come, bring me to justice. I dare you." And Sebastian went full force at
Fire
it.
seems to work.
Chapter 15, Ruvik uses Leslie as a guide for Sebastian, saying, come this way. Sebastian, still in his protective mode, wanting to save Leslie, runs after Leslie to figure out what's going on. Leads him straight to the terminal where everybody's there. You can see everybody that's important to the game is connected physically to the system there. He sees himself connected there. And at that moment, Leslie bursts through the door, Kidman right behind him, and they have both fallen for the mental guile that Ruvik put in front of them. Sebastian pulls his gun on Kidman. Kidman has her gun on Sebastian. They're arguing about whether or not Leslie and she are who they say they are and what's going on. Sebastian doesn't understand. Kidman can't explain it fast enough, and Leslie willingly consents to Ruvik. Walks over to Ruvik and gives himself to Ruvik. The only thing Ruvik now needs, the last tether to be cut. He throws everything he has at Sebastian. Sebastian has grown strong enough in power that he's now equal to the god of STEM, and the two of them do battle in an arena. Sebastian wins. Ruvik throws one last taunt to him and says, I created this world. You cannot keep me here. Sebastian, still bound and determined that he's going to win this battle, goes and pulls the hardware of Ruvik's soul, the hardware of Ruben's soul, the brain, out of STEM and crushes it. That cuts the final tie. Ruben wins. Ruvik's out. He's inside Leslie. He's no longer tethered to the STEM, and the game is over.
Increased susceptibility to external stimuli. Pattern adaptiveness.
That is pretty much a complete summary of how our philosophy is given in the game.
Unbelievable.
We'll summarize it one more time for you.
Mistake. This one is compatible.
Life is 10% what happens to you, and 90% how you respond to it. The 10% is scary. It's beyond your control. It's something that's changed. It's something you don't know what is going to happen. People are afraid of that change, afraid of what they don't understand and what they can't control. Nobody can force you to give your 90% up. You can always own your 90%. But you have three options in how you respond to fear. You can lose all hope and wither away and die a husk of a person. You can look to others to save you, to take the real fear away. This always, inevitably leads to you giving consent to someone, the consent to control your 90% responses. You will let them tell you how to respond. They will remove that 90% from you, and you hope they will remove the 10% of fear from you. Almost always, the consent that winds up being given that way winds up being given to the very system or very person that was causing the 10% to start in the beginning. You wind up giving 100% of your life to the person that controlled only 10%. They wind up possessing you. In this game, that's a literal possession. You can choose to place your hope in yourself. Take individual responsibility for your own actions. Own your 90%. That can never be taken away from you. You can only give it away. You will always be free as long as you own your 10%, your 90%. As long as you own the 90% that is within your ability to act, your responsibility, you take that individual responsibility upon yourself, you will always be free. But freedom comes at a cost. Self-reliance without wisdom, without knowledge, and without insight. That's the final lesson. Sebastian was free the whole time. He acted of his own resources. He took responsibility for his own actions and his own responses to what was happening around him. Ruvik used that responsibility, that need for control of his 90%. He used that against him. He gave them what he needed so that he could get back what he needed from Sebastian. So, take care. Take responsibility for your 90%. Own it. But keep your eyes open. All right, just one little final section to go through. We're starting at chapter 3. I just wanted to show you that now when you start chapters from the save games that we've created here, that last save game that we created at the end of chapter 5, reload that as the new game plus base. Then you can load any chapter you want, and you'll have all the weapons that you can have in the game. So you have the brass knuckles plus the rocket launcher plus the machine gun plus the upgraded sniper rifle plus the upgraded burst handgun. All right, well, that's our Akumu run plus a little extra. I hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed it. Stick with us. There's the whole DLC coming with the darkness mode, the Kiriyami mode for Kidman. We'll point out how her role in the entire philosophy comes into play in the DLCs. A whole lot of the information we get that we built the philosophy off of comes from the DLCs. So it'll mostly be pointing out how that tied into the philosophy that we came up with. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again.